of two girls, and her role as a parent, or her role as parents as teacher coordinator at Holy Cross Ministries has taught her a lot about the mental health challenges experienced by local mothers, including herself. Her talk tonight, It's Okay to Not Be Okay, is about moving past postpartum depression, and that it's okay to reach out and talk to someone. We're excited to partner with Connect Summit County this month for their Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're honored to have Lizeette share her personal story of motherhood. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Lizeette, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barry. Again, thank you for having me here today and granting me this platform to talk about a conversation that sometimes some of us may feel that is challenging to talk about, but I think we're moving forward in the right way here in our community. We are, being more open about, how we feel on mental wellness, and just to be, it's okay not to be okay. And I think that's why we named that today, that topic. And I want to just kind of start by saying I'm not a professional. I'm just a person here that lives in the community. So I just wanted to share my experience. It took a lot for me to decide to talk about it because it puts me in a vulnerable place. But then at the same time, I realized that it was important for me to voice my experience and hopefully have someone out there hear my story and say, hey, I identify myself with her, and it's okay not to be okay, and what is it that I can do? So without further ado, what I would like to do is share my screen. And again, this is just a conversation. I'm going to share my story. So if at any point you guys have questions, you can ask them, or at the end, we'll have some space for questions and answers. So here I go. Let me know if you guys can see it. Can you guys see that? Yes, perfect. So again, my name is Lizeette Zurita, and I am a resident of Park City. I live in our neighborhood. I have two beautiful young daughters, and I moved here it's going to be 5 years on May 31st. And I think coming to Park City was an awakening moment for me. And I just want to start by sharing my experience with you. Let me see if I can change my slide. There we go. So I want to begin by, I became a mother at age 26 to 27 with my firstborn. And I'm a person that likes to plan things. So that pregnancy was very much planned. And we decided at around age 4 that it was time for us to have a second daughter or second child. And so I made sure that I had everything in line, our finances straight, and that we could afford it, because all of those that have had a child and it's a working parent and takes their child to childcare, a good high quality childcare, we know it's not cheap. So there are those things that I like to always plan accordingly. And so I looked at that. I made sure that my daughter was going to be in kindergarten, so it was going to be perfect because she was going to be in kinder. And so I was going to have, instead of having 2 childcare a month, I could actually focus on 1. And I knew that I had enough time. My oldest was old enough where I could probably focus more in my second one. She was more independent. So I was ready. So this was a planned pregnancy. I removed my IUD and I said, let's go. And I had a good experience with my first one. So I was ready for a second pregnancy. So in this photo that you guys are seeing here, I was 38 weeks pregnant. And so because I'm a planner, I had decided that I wanted to work until the last day. And so that was my plan. And then I realized that I was having problems breathing. And so at work, I would walk and I just would have to stop because I was, running out of breath. And so I went into my weekly visit and my doctor said, my OB/GYN said, let's just keep an eye on that. If you keep feeling that way, let's have you come back and we'll check it. So I go back in on week 30, my last week, and she says, you know what, you're not sounding that great. And I don't like to induce pregnancy labors, but if you want, I can go ahead and do it because I can see you're looking very tired. And I decided that no, my baby I wasn't having contractions. My baby is not time. I called it, she's not well cooked. Let's leave that one extra week. And so I decided to hold on to that last week. But I stopped working. So I did everything that I could. I walked around as much as I could and exercised so that my child could have a good birth. So like I said, I like to be a planner, but things go different. They may change, and I'm not able to change my slide. Give me a second. Here, let me see. And so I go in on the day that I'm gonna have labor with my daughter, and I'm having difficulties breathing. I'm still not having close enough contractions, but my doctor hears me out and she says, "You do not sound good. I'm asking for you to go to the hospital. If you don't go, I'm gonna send the ambulance." And my husband was working in Los Angeles. I forgot to mention, back then I lived in San Diego. So I said, no. I will call my husband. He will come home and he will take me. So we went, and the focus was more on me because I was having difficulties with my breathing. And so they put the baby monitor on you, and you think, they're like, you're moving a lot. It seemed to be that I was actually having back labor, which, it's not, it's not as comfortable as a regular labor. And so they kept saying, you need to stop moving because we cannot hear your baby's heartbeat. And I turned around and I told my husband, it's there, I can see it. It's right there. So then they decided that it was not working properly. And so they switched it twice. And so ultimately at the very end, they realized that my baby's heartbeat was not there. And so my room rapidly turned into having one nurse to having a room full of multiple nurses, doctors, and rushing me into an induced C-section. At that moment, I said they're transporting me to have surgery. I hear them say, we need to have her sign the documents because what does she want to do? Does she want her baby to live? And I don't remember the exact words, but I remember hearing that. And I enter into that. I need to make a decision. And I am feeling like I'm fighting. And so I said, just save my baby. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth. And because of the severity of it, they're like, well, she hasn't signed the documents. We need her to sign. And they're like, no, we heard her. There's multiple people that said that she wants us to save her baby. And I'm a person of faith. So I started praying to God and my Father who is in heaven. And I asked him, I said, you're a little closer to God. So can you please help me out here, save my child? And it was a very stressful moment. But something miracle came over and my child was born, and I was okay and she was okay. And so I decided at that moment that I just needed to be thankful and blessed to have my daughter in my arms, and I could bring that baby to her older sister. And so there we were. We came home, and that's my oldest with the pink bows, Inessa, and Seva in her arms. She just adored her, and everything was perfect. I was so happy that my baby was healthy. There was nothing wrong with her. After we left the hospital, she was very stable. And so I thought, hey, here it is. We survived that. And so let's move forward. But as I mentioned initially, I'm a planner. So if you remember, I mentioned my daughter was going to go to kindergarten and I was going to be able to just have to pay one child care tuition. But to my surprise, I only had 7 weeks to be at home. And so I started looking at the one child care, and the fees had gone up. And so now I was looking at paying up close to, I think it was $1,500 a month. And let me remind you, I was in the education field. So, our wages were not that extravagant. So I had everything planned. And I rapidly found out that my oldest daughter, who was in kindergarten, I also had to pay some fees for her to be in the after school program, which were $600, which I was not accounting for. So I had to make big decisions. I knew I couldn't stay home because I couldn't afford it. I forgot to mention that my youngest was born during the recession. I bought our house during when the houses were at the peak, and we paid a lot more than what it was worth during the recession, less than 50% of that. And so a lot of factors started changing, and I rapidly found myself in a place that my mind was controlling everything. I was constantly thinking of what I was going to do. I needed to go back to work, only had 7 weeks. And so I needed to find a new place where I could put my daughter, my youngest one, my baby. And so I found a childcare, not the perfect childcare that I wanted, not where I had placed my oldest. So right there in that moment, it was a hard moment for me. My baby was only 7 weeks old, and I was leaving her somewhere where she was going to be taken care of, and not me. And so that was very hard. And so I proceeded. I was on survival mode. I needed to do what I needed to do to survive, and so I would run between my lunches and breastfeed my child, and I would run back. I would sometimes eat a burrito on the road so that I could just have that extra time with my baby. My mind started just being fogged with all these financial situations that I was encountering. And as I mentioned, we owned a house. The value of our house had plummeted. I had about $800 more a month of expenses that I had not accounted for. So that created a lot of pain in my mind. But I'm a fighter, so I decided that I would find ways. I tried to refinance our house because there was there was something there that allowed me to try to refinance. That failed. I had to pay $1,000 to do the paperwork, which now I had another $1,000 that I didn't have. And not to mention, with all of that, I had a lot of guilt that I had not paid attention to. Could I have done something different during my pregnancy to help my child not have those complications? And throughout those nights, I would always think about that night or that day that when I was giving birth, trying to give birth to my child who didn't have a heartbeat. And those thoughts of, I could hear the voice of the OBGYN telling me, Lizeette, if you want, I can induce you. You don't sound good. And my decision to say, no, my child needs to stay in there. She's not wanting to come out yet. And so you start kind of just, all these thoughts start bombarding you, and you are trying to figure out if you really had made the best decision for the well-being of your child. As I mentioned, I had the guilt of leaving my child in the daycare. I knew it wasn't the best place for her. I knew she was safe, but it wasn't the ideal place where I had anticipated in placing her. So there's another, guilt in my head. I was not able to bond as much as I did with my first child. My first child I was very blessed to have worked for the first year of her life part-time, where I didn't have to put her in a place that she needed to be taken care of. I would take care of her in the day, and then I would teach at nighttime. So my husband would come and take care of her. Those were not the same scenarios for our second child. I would still work 2 nights a week. And that also allowed me to think about how I was not even giving my all either to my oldest. And that was very hard. And to top it off, I was unable to continue to lactate. And that was very hard for me. And I remember being in tears of not feeling enough as a mother, because I couldn't produce the milk. I took the pills. Little did I know that my child was going to be okay if I didn't lactate. But in those moments when I was in all this fog, that's all I could think of. I could not give my child my milk for her to be healthy, and those were my thoughts. But in reality, that was not the truth. But I couldn't see that. When I say it was foggy, it was really foggy. And but I couldn't see beyond that guilt. And I could go on and mention other things that, I felt guilty about. Maybe I wasn't cleaning enough, though I would try to clean it all the time. I had all these internal conversations with my head and within my head about what else could I do as a parent, to be the best that I could be for my child. And I felt a lot of guilt. And so that was probably one of the hardest moments, not being able to lactate my child. My first one, I was able to breastfeed her until she was a year old. And not to mention, as I had addressed our financial hardships that we were dealing with, we also, not being able to lactate meant to me that I needed to buy that one expensive formula, because my baby was very sensitive to the formula. And so our little can was $25, and she would go through a lot of those. And so it was, I felt like I was drowning, but I couldn't really realize how really I was feeling. I was not validating my feelings. I was just consumed by those thoughts. And so, some of the postpartum anxiety that I had and signs that I had that I really felt to see and be able to connect the dots, I would cry. I would be okay, and then all of a sudden something didn't. Maybe I didn't, and I think I made a reference to before. I'm Mexican American, and I like to warm up my tortillas in a comal in a pan, and I burned my tortillas. I couldn't do the laundry the way I did it before. I mean, I would just start crying. If my baby cried, I would start crying because I sometimes didn't know how to make her stop crying. But in reality, it wasn't that long. It seemed a lot, like a long time in my head. I was not sleeping at nighttime because I had my thoughts were consumed of how to solve the financial hardships that we had. I didn't want to lose my home. I didn't want to be another case of foreclosure. So I was trying to manage those things. So what else can I do? Maybe when the kids are asleep, I can clean more so that I can have more time with my child. So I was sleeping less. I stopped wanting to do exercise. I stopped wanting to talk to my friends. Those of you that know me, I'm super social and I love to have conversations. I love to hug people. And I found myself not finding the same joy in doing that. I couldn't focus at work. I would be doing something, and at that time I was coordinating a couple of programs, and I remember not being able to remember exactly the curriculum for one of the levels that I was trying to talk to one of my to my teacher, sorry. And even at home, there was times that I forgot to pay my bills, and I had the money in my account. I just forgot to pay my bills. I forgot it was the first of the month. And with that comes more guilt. And with that, I would just cry. But I failed to realize that what I was feeling was not normal. I started feeling anxiety. When my baby didn't stop crying, I just was like anxious. I couldn't stop myself from acknowledging that I was not in control. I started having headaches all the time. And I just thought that it was because I was way too busy. And so that's why I had headaches. I had my mood swings. I was happy right now, and in 5 minutes I was crying. And I talked about the guilt already, but what really kind of hit me was when, and I'm talking about what I went through was not in months. My daughter was probably about 2 years old. And I remember starting to feel so tired that I thought, you know what, if I just got really sick and I went into a hospital, then I could just not have to worry about all the other responsibilities. And then I remember driving one day and it seemed like to me like the car was going to hit me. If you guys been in San Diego, you guys know how traffic can be over there. And I was like, wow, if that car would have hit me, I could have probably gone to the hospital and be there for days and not worry about anything. And at that moment, I didn't realize that that was not a good thought. That was a big sign. My body was trying to send me so many signals that I ignored because I was too busy trying to be the perfect mom. And I just want you guys to know that we need to listen to our bodies. We need to listen to our minds. We need to be aware. And I'm so glad that we live in an area and during this time where we're normalizing these conversations. And there's a lot of more information that there was when I was going through this. So one of the things that I realized is that I was walking alone in my thoughts. I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to anyone to tell them that I needed help, that I felt that if I did, it made me look like I wasn't the woman that they thought I was. And so I just kept looking inside of me, what else can I do? And I kept walking alone. So that is probably one of the number one reasons why I've decided to talk about my situation, because it's not a good place to be in. And we don't deserve to walk alone, and no one does. And so I'm inviting you that if you're going through something like this, even less or more than what signs of that are telling you, if you're not feeling okay, reach out for help. Reach out to someone. And it's okay to reconnect with yourself. I think as a mother, sometimes we get so consumed of wanting to be the best mother, the superhero mother, the perfect mom, that we focus in everyone else but ourselves. And we need to understand that our bodies and our us, there's so much that is so kind to us, but sometimes we forget to be kind to ourselves. So I want you to remember that there are two things. There are two languages. There's the mind and there's the body. And so the mind, could be thoughts like I was having. There are words and there are images. But then our body also is carrying out a language. What is your body telling you? And I want you to think about that right now, the mind and body connection. So if I ask you right now, I'm sure that as you're listening to this conversation or this presentation, your mind is probably thinking about other 5 different things that you as a mother or as a father should be doing and could be doing. But here you are sitting in front of these squares, listening to me. I want you to stop and block that. I want you to connect with your body and listen to your body. And I want you just to give yourself 20 seconds or 10 seconds right now. Pay attention to your eyes. How do your eyes feel right now? Do they feel tight? Do they feel tired? How about your neck? We put a lot of tension in our necks and our upper backs. That's your body speaking to you. It's telling you something. How about your low back? How about your head? Are you feeling tension? Listen to your body. Now transform those body messages to words. What are they telling you? Are they telling you to pay attention? There's tension. Why is there tension? Is there something that you yourself can do to help you? I invite you to be responsive versus reactive. I decided to put this photo. I actually took this photo on a trip to Cambodia. It's one of the temples. And I feel that as a human being, we need to look at our roots, our foundation. How are they? Let's pay attention to them. Think about responding rather than reacting. And what do I mean by that? Your baby's crying right now. What is our instinct? Run and pay attention to that baby, right? You want to see what's wrong with the baby, but let's listen. Let's see what they want. Is it something that maybe they can just try to comfort themselves and find a position to fall asleep? Do you really need to run and stop whatever you're doing to be attentive? Take away your needs to focus on someone else. I want to invite you to, before you do that, to take a breath, assess the situation. Does it need your immediate attention? I can share with you a recent situation that happened with me. I was so tired. Like, I'm not kidding you. I felt so tired that I felt like I couldn't get out of the couch because I had just sat down. And my daughter comes and tells me, Mom, I can't find, I think it was the curling iron. And I'm like, it's underneath the sink on the right-hand side. Oh, it's not there. What was my initial reaction? Want to go and get it for her because I know exactly where it is, right? The same thing with our babies. If your husband says, so, I can't find the creamer or something, our instinct is to go and solve the problem right away. But listen to your body. My instant reaction would be to go and pay attention and do whatever, provide to them whatever they need. But I'm forgetting myself. I'm forgetting about me and my needs. And what will happen if I just stay seated? Because that's what I need. I need that moment for myself. I need to sit down for 5 minutes so that I can re-energize myself, so I can be a better me so that I can be better for others. Get to know you. Get to know what triggers you. Acknowledge, like I said, your emotions, your sensations, and try to replenish your energy. It's very important that we do that. And we as parents, I don't want to just single it out for mothers. I think as a father too, we tend to do that. We tend to be very reactive versus responsive and assessing the situation. And I did that. That was me. I was on reaction mode all the time. And I forgot to listen to myself. And I really think that's why I was in a very dark place. Your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. I invite you guys to create a labor of love for yourself. Learn to value your own needs, validate yourself, validate your feelings, give yourself a break. And tell yourself that it's okay to say no, and it's okay not to be okay. But also remember to praise yourself when you do something, because I think we're very good about telling others how great they do, our kids, our spouses, our co-workers, but we often forget to validate the good work that we're doing not only as a mother or as a father, but as a human being, as a person. And give yourself a chance, because sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that we really decide that we don't deserve to try it again, or we say, oh, I'm not good at that, or I failed as a parent. And often enough we're harder on ourselves than what others will be to us. It's a long journey and a long road. So I invite you not to go through this journey alone. I want you to identify your support groups. I had great friends that I just felt like I couldn't reach out to, but it wasn't because they really were not there. It was because I did not open that door to invite them in to me, to what I was going through. And I think it's so much easier when you're walking with someone else than when you're walking by yourself. Whoever that may be, is it your spouse, a friend, your mom, could it be now a therapist or a physician? I invite you to make the call. Don't stay inundated in your own thoughts. Talk about what you're feeling. Seek professional help if that's what you need. If you're trying and you try different techniques, I invite you to seek therapy. Sometimes we are so hard on ourselves, so we think, oh, I don't need that. I decided to take therapy after so many years, and it really was a blessing in disguise. It really kind of opened up a new window, a new view for me. And I've attended support groups also, and I think that just allows me to still be a better person now. I feel like I've gotten out of that a funk of not feeling okay, then feeling like I'm always foggy. But it was a long journey, and it was a lonely journey. And I invite you not to do that to yourself. There's no need for you to do that. If you don't have anyone else, you can always reach out to us. We're here for you. I feel that motherhood, we need to embrace our needs as moms. We need to lead ourselves to a healthy place. We need to take action, self-empowerment. And remember that you're allowed to be both a masterpiece, because that's what we want to be, but also remember that we're always a work in progress. And so I want you, if you're in a place where you need that help, that support, to seek help, do research. I wanted to just share that with me. I didn't know how bad I was until I started my job with Holy Cross Ministries as the parents as teachers coordinator, and we conduct PHQ-9 assessments for postpartum, and I checked all the boxes. And that moment when I actually took it for myself, just to see when I was then, because I like to kind of understand our parents and what they're going through, and I put myself back then, it was a big eye opener. I didn't know how bad I was, and I know I did not deserve to be there. So I know you don't deserve to be there. So I welcome you to be part of a better journey than mine. I don't know if there are any questions. I will stop sharing. Oh, but before I forget, very important, some local resources that will be shared with you. We have Communities That Care. Summit County has a list of resources that you guys can have access to. We'll share that website with you guys. There's a lot of them where they're either if you have insurance or uninsured, you can access those services as well as Connect. Remember, this is the month that we are talking about mental health. So we will be sharing this with you guys. So I will stop sharing my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lizeette. I really, really appreciate your story and your vulnerability. And I know that you just are helping us all on our way to remember that it's okay not to be okay. So thank you so much. I had a question, and I also invite, if you're, you're welcome to ask a question. And if you prefer to put something in the chat, I'm happy to ask for you also. But my question was, were you approached on your dark days by friends or your spouse that could see more clearly than you that you weren't thriving? And if so, how did you handle that feedback?
I actually was not, because I was really good at masking my emotions. I don't know if you guys have seen that commercial on TV where there's the lady with kind of like a one of those things that fan, and they have like a happy face, and then she's behind it just very sad and serious. It's so funny because when I see that, that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. I felt like I needed to put that facade of I'm okay, because I didn't think it was not okay to be not okay. And so I don't think they realized, and I honestly think there was not enough of this conversation that people, I know, for example, my spouse, my husband, he just thought I didn't have the same patience, because, you know, if he would ask me something about the finance, especially when we're looking at should we refinance our house, and I remember crying, and he's like, "You're always stressed, relax." But I think it was in I want to say my husband is a wonderful husband, but I don't think he understood. He just thought I was overreacting, and he didn't have the tools that he needed to know that those were signs that I was not doing okay. And I also want to say that through my research, I have found out that even just the situation that happened to me during the time of me giving birth was such a stressful moment that alone puts me at a higher risk of dealing with postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, because of the severity of the stressful moments that I went through. And I didn't know that.
I was just on a training, I do birth work, and I was just on a training last week with Postpartum Support International, PSI, and it was exactly on that, on working with women that have traumatic births and being predisposed. And also I see with working with women, it's hard when you have a new baby, and I remember this from myself, that you don't know what's you've lost normal. So you don't know, you're like, and I don't know, I'm exhausted, aren't you? Like, I'm crabby, aren't you? And so we really, you know, I teach as an instructor to, it's really a month, you know, 3 weeks out if you're not doing the things that you love to do, like you said, you know, and for spouses to have an eye on that. And we heard that from the Healing Group, which is another one of Hive's partners that supports postpartum women. And it is so important. I think your point is very, very well taken.
Yeah, and Sarah, I just want to say what you were saying, echo that. For me, I thought it was normal for me to feel that exhausted. And when I'm saying that exhausted, it was a different level. But in my situation, I was like, I'm a working mom. I'm working probably more than 40 hours at work because of the role that I played in the institute or the education that I worked for. I worked so hard. I didn't share, but I like my house very clean. I used to actually probably have a little bit of OCD. So I was very hard on myself to try to keep the same standards that I had with my first child, because I felt that I should be able to do it. Why shouldn't I? You know, I'm super mom. I can do this. And so when I was feeling that tired and I just felt like I was losing a little bit of composure, I would always validate it with, oh, it's 2 kids. It's normal that I'm feeling different because I'm more exhausted. I'm getting probably less sleep, which I was. But it's very important for us to talk about these things, because if your body's, and that's why I say, listen to your body, because your body is trying to tell us, our bodies are trying to tell us so much, but we are more in this kind of act proactive rather, responsive way, that we really forget to look at all those signs that are there around us, within us, and that we're not paying attention.
I'll add one last thing that you just said, because I've learned also that if you like you said, you're like, oh, I have a little OCD in my background or my history, or that's just, the way I am. And that predisposition actually comes out with birth, and it doesn't always come out with the first child, which makes your story even more compelling, because you had a first child that you had different circumstances, your life and the birth and your energy, and, but again, I think you had a few things working, your traumatic birth, and then a little predisposition to, mood disorder, as we would call it. Even if you're just like, oh, it's a sprinkle, and then all the stress of that year. So anyway, it helps me connect a lot of dots to hear your story. So just thank you so much again.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us as parents. And again, I want to not just aim it to mothers, because I know the fathers can also, deal with some of this. So I want to validate and acknowledge the role of the father in this conversation, but the importance of us getting educated as maybe as we're expecting, and being attentive and really talking to either your spouse, who's that person that is closest to you, and to give them, let them know, let me know if you see anything that I might not be seeing, but be kind when you're telling me, and have a plan of action too, should that be the case. Because one of the things that I was reading, and again, I'm not an expert, but I was reading that 1 in every 9 women may suffer from postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression. And so if I'm correct, there's 10 of us here, and I suffer from that. So that kind of corroborates that information. And it might be more, it might be less. And the pandemic may not have made it easier on us either.
Yeah, Lizette, I think that's a really good point. When we had the healing group, I think it was actually even higher. I believe it's closer to 1 in 7 could potentially suffer from that. And also to complications of, you have your first birth and nothing is wrong. You don't realize, or nothing is wrong, but you have your first baby and you don't have any sort of mood disorders, or you don't feel like you have any sort of postpartum depression. You think, oh, well, that's just not in my nature. That's not in my body. I'm all fine. And then you have a second baby, and um, those items to reckon or to diagnose are not as easy to recognize. And so you go on thinking, well, I didn't have any problems the first time around, so my anxiety or my moods or my crying, it must just be the hormones, or it must just be, attributing it to the exhaustion, and not realizing, again, talking about it and hearing other people's stories allows you to realize that it is possible to experience it the first time and maybe not the second, or not the first time and maybe the second and third time that you have a child. So again, we just really appreciate you telling your story and being so open about it. And we also are so thankful for Connect to bring light to all of the mental health awareness month and everything that you've done with all of your events. And we're just really grateful for everything that both of Connect and Lizeette and Holy Cross Ministries does for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, lastly, that it's important. You mentioned something that if you feel exhausted, and it could begin as that. I think if we are able to identify and validate those feelings early enough, then you can prevent it from escalating and becoming a postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression as well. So just be attentive to any changes and validate it, and remember that we are human beings, and that we're not superheroes, we're not super moms, and we're not perfect. There's not a perfect, nothing is perfect. Everything is evolving, everything is changing. And so we're just in the works of becoming the best masterpiece that we can be. Diana.
I have questions. I wrote them all down, so but I won't take up too much time. I was curious about did you have any community supports that really made a difference while you were experiencing that? And then I guess the flip side of that question is, what kind of community supports could have been helpful along the way?
I think I had a community support group, but not with the right tools. And what I mean by that is they didn't know exactly what I was going through. So they really couldn't maximize their power to support me if that's the best, for the lack of a better word. But again, I want to talk, and it might be that because I am part of this world of mental health and I'm so involved that I feel that it's really out there and we're having these ongoing conversations and it's more normalized now, but it may not be you. Maybe you haven't heard it. And so I think education is crucial to be able to really be able to help someone that is going through something like what I went through, or someone that may be dealing with less or more of a similar situation than mine. But obviously I did have a support group. My husband was very loving and understanding, even though sometimes I would probably drive him nuts because he didn't know. My children, my oldest daughter, she was so cute. Sometimes when she would see me crying, and I hated for her to see me crying because I couldn't control myself, she would tell me, "It's okay, mommy, I'm gonna go make the bottle for my baby sister." And those little things help. You know I push people away. I would say I was too busy, but I had my friends that still would send me messages and just kind of like a good morning. I hope you're having a great day. Being able to kind of go into, I think, as much as I wanted to be with my children, I think being able to go to work allowed me to kind of escape a little bit of maybe that the guilt that I had maybe with not being able to lactate. I was able to detach a little bit sometimes of those thoughts. And so I think that all of that helped me, and me wanting to help myself, but I didn't have the tools. And I think it's crucial because you could have so many people around you that might want to help you, but if you're not willing, then it just becomes that much harder. And I know you had another question, Deanna. I don't know if I answered your question completely.
No, I think one of the main things I heard is just, and you said it earlier too, just normalizing, I think a lot of the whole country, I think, has done a lot of work to really start to normalize, but obviously there's a lot more. So I kind of hear that, and totally can relate in my own way, different ways.
And I also want to say, there's the stigma. It could be either a cultural thing, it could be a family thing. And when we say cultural, it could be, if you're from a specific, like I'm Mexican American, and I know that in my culture, it's not, it wasn't very common to reach out for help, because then you would think you would be a little crazy or things like that. But I also know that there's cultures within the families. So, if you don't know anyone else in your family has reached out for help, then it might be harder for you to verbalize that, to ask for that help. But I always say there's always the first, and let it be you. Let you be the first one that tries to help herself or himself to be in a better place, and then more will follow.
Yeah. My other question, or kind of, I don't know, I could just go forever, to be honest, but my other question was a little bit about, I know you talked about an assessment that you guys do, and that you were like, oh my gosh, if I would have taken this assessment, I would have realized at Holy Cross. But what else do you do to kind of help? And I know, of course, you have therapy and all of that, but like through the Parents and Teachers program, or how do you kind of build this into having this conversation and continuing to normalize and get people connected to the right resources?
Well, what we do specifically with our group, and currently all the parents that are part of our program, they're Latinx, and all the services are in Spanish at this moment. Not that everyone is monolingual. We have some that are bilingual as well, but given that we have everyone speaking Spanish, then we offer everything currently in Spanish, unless they ask to be given in English. But we have normalized the conversation by inviting them to all these support groups that we talk about, to these webinars, where it becomes maybe where they're just in the background sitting and they're listening, but then it's becoming a normal conversation. It's not something, we call it a stigma. It was very stigmatized within our community, and You know, you mentioned we're very fortunate to have bilingual, bicultural therapists in Holy Cross Ministries. And it's so great to see now that parents are reaching out and they're asking us to get referred for this service. So that alone tells us that we're doing something. And I think our partnership with Connect and Communities That Care also strengthen that normalcy as well. But another thing that we do is we are there. We are present. We are that support group to the moms, to the dads, and so we're the ones that we know if they have had maybe some valleys, that we're reaching out more constantly with them, seeing how they're doing. We're inviting them to do outdoor activities, to walk. That is one of the things that helped me a lot. Just get out into nature, walk around, take a breather. We talk about, you know, listening to the body, just pause, breathe, listen to your body, identify what helps you. You know, for example, me, I might be feeling like the anxiety it's boiling up. And then I know that I've learned through all this process that I can just walk away for less than 5 minutes, take a breather, talk to myself and say it's not the end of the world. And then we normalize it. So being human and talking to our parents about it, even me sharing my experience with them, I think that's extremely valuable.
I'll ask one last question. And again, Lizeette, you and I could just talk forever, right? And
Yes.
we have, right? But just kind of with your personal story and what you've shared with us this evening, again, there's a lot of stuff, but what's maybe one thing that you feel that is missing in our community that we could really kind of work all of us together, kind of work towards meeting that need?
I think we're in the right path. I think we're doing having these tough conversations. It's one of the key components. Obviously, being able to have more accessible therapy, especially for those that are uninsured or that your insurance premium is too high. You know, I was in that boat. I mean, I'm blessed to not be in, you know, to be in a position that I have health insurance, but at one point our deductible was $5,000. And I know it was hard to be able to do that. And I know therapy not always your insurance plans may not cover as much as you need. So having more accessible resources for everyone, I think, you know, and I know that that's something that we're working on, and just having more conversations. I think even just maybe if you're not involved in initiatives or things like that, just reaching out to your neighbor, doing more of that, you know, just being present.
I think that speaks a little bit, a lot of this conversation for me speaks to how the architecture of our communities and our cultures and our families have shifted so much over the past many decades, right? We're not living in multi-generational houses as much anymore, or we're more isolated, we're further away from our families, not just out of the house, but out of the same community as our families. And so in that, it's effortful sometimes to consciously, because we're also very busy, to create that community through friends and networks that way. And it might not be as comfortable to reach out to your friends as it would be maybe like a sister or something like that who sees you every day. And one thing that I struggle with in terms of postpartum depression is a lot of these signs and symptoms are like, do you have this? Do you have that? Yes or no? And I feel like a lot of times as a new parent, you know, you are very excited. And so that excitement kind of masks some of your symptoms a lot of times, as well as you have a perspective like, oh, I have a new baby, I should be super happy, right? Like I got what I wanted. So what I've been thinking about with this conversation is how to make it more accessible for people going through it to understand and see that they're actually having the symptoms rather than like a yes, no. And I don't know if you've encountered this or you have, it's kind of two questions, but if you've encountered like any type of scale instead of like a yes, no, like a daily scale, you can say, okay, what's my anxiety level today? And when you mark an 8, you're kind of like, oh, wow, like I'm actually, it's not, yes, I have anxiety. It's how much do you have, or what is your worry, or what is your sleep? Like if you could rate those. So I don't know if you've encountered anything like that. And then the second thing I would ask is, do you find that it is valid to have conversations before delivery and before somebody creates that family, whether it's their first or second or third child? Because a lot of times we focus on the happiness of it all, but I think it's the awareness of that community, whether it's your spouse or your siblings or your friends, for these are things to watch out for in this person, because they a lot of times do not see it themselves, or if they do, they're in denial. And so I don't know if you've encountered any of those. And I apologize. We're going a little bit late with those questions, so I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. So the PHQ-9 that I made reference to actually has different levels. And one of the things that it talks about with it, or when you're taking it, it asks you to look at the last 2 weeks. And so, I have that where I can actually score it. I was looking because I was considering if it's something that we wanted to share, but I've noticed that some of them are just with the questions, but they don't have the answers. They want you to go to your physician to go and discuss that. And so, we also want to be cautious and make sure that we are we're leaving everyone putting up everyone in a safe place. And so, yes, and that one tells you, it gives you like different parameters, sometimes more often than not, and things like that, where it allows you to kind of leverage, and it allows you to see what level of either anxiety or depression you may have, which allows you to better assess, if it's low, do you need to have maybe conversations with a partner that can help you, or should you be attending this kind of group sessions where you hear, if it's a little more moderate, should you be going to a therapist? If it's more severe, do you need medical attention? And I also want to talk about that, because I think sometimes it's hard for us to kind of say, well, why am I given medication? I think everyone is being very cautious now, and they're not going to hand you medication so easily. So if it is recommended, give us some thought and really kind of talk to your physicians and make it a two-way conversation. Don't leave those questions in your head. Really ask them, because I think that will help you kind of make the best decision for yourself, so you're in a better place. So that is one of the things. And yes, most definitely, I think we should be having these conversations. Even now I have conversations with my children about this, because it's not just about postpartum. I mean, our kids could be dealing with some of that as well. So let's normalize that conversation, and let's talk about it in all scenarios, not just postpartum depression or anxiety. Let us have a voice, and let the kids have a voice. Let's as a community have a voice to be able to talk about our feelings, looking for signs, welcoming others to come and reach out to help you, and but vice versa, feel comfortable and feel safe to reach out for help.
Thank you so much. I think we have one final question if you have 2 more minutes to scan. Nikki was interested in if your doctor was involved in this conversation. So did you have any conversations prior to birth about postpartum mood disorders?
No, I'm an example of one not to do, basically. We did not. And I read what to expect when you're expecting. But for some reason, I think I just skimmed through that one chapter where it may talk about the emotions and your feelings and, postpartum depression. I don't remember reading much of that, because in all honesty, I have to be honest, I didn't think that would be me. And I was so happy, and I had a wonderful experience with my first child that I I ignored to do that research. So I didn't, when I say I'm speaking because I want to be an example of what we will see less of. I want others to not be in a better place where they're reaching out for the help, or to have that conversation with their OBGYN, with their physicians, with their therapists. I want to normalize it. And I think I might have been in a different situation where these conversations were not happening as much. And I don't even know that the physicians were equipped to probably address and be able to see. And then remember, I wasn't helping. I was masking all my emotions. And so, no, and I struggled for a long time. And I don't want anyone to have to be in that position where they're thinking that if they get hurt, that they could be in a better place. And because it's not.
I'm so happy you're here to share your story, and I hope that everyone who's listening and has a friend and can tell a friend, because I do think talking about it might prevent the next mama. So, well, thank you so much, all of you, for spending your Tuesday evening with us. Thank you again to Deanna and Connect and Lizeette. You are so beautiful inside and out, and I'm really, really appreciative of this. And we will, continue to be here as Hive Family Collective to support, new families going through this. And just thank you so much. So I wish everyone a beautiful week, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Lizeette.
much, Lizeette.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Gracias.
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 Did you want me just to
No,
later
you
send
were
that?
so,
You're still recording. I don't know if you